let's pick up another few of your messages. All text forum, no voice notes just yet from WhatsApp. And you know what I need you to do next week. Someone take the brave step to be the first 360 viewer to submit a voice note. Okay, let's pick up on your messages. So, from Hickling, I'm not quite sure where Hickling is. Erin W writes in, thank you Erin. Please wish Jan Kvich a successful start to his GP campaign. He looked pretty quick and confident on Monday at King's Lynn. He certainly did. One of his better and more confident performances. He said in an interview on live television that he felt much more at home, much more confident, much more settled. The track clearly to his liking. And and Jan is he's obviously a talent. I remember seeing him ride at Glasgow in the under-21 World Team Cup format. I think it was a semi-final stage. Must be 6-7 seasons ago now. He was 16-17 years of age and he was the star of the show that day. He certainly showed he had some promise. So King's Lynn dived in and made him a star last season and brought him back this year. And hopefully, Erin, you're going to see Jan do well in the GP campaign itself and for the stars this season. Next up, Nick from Leicester writes, thank you Nick, agreed with your positivity on British youth. Look at the under-21 semi and final, an abundance of talent right there. William Cairns is still just 15! Exclamation mark. So it's a yes. So this week we've seen the British under-21 semi-final round held at Plymouth. It looked to be a bit of a battle to secure the final qualifying places for the final itself, which is going to be held in a couple of weeks' time up in Glasgow. And the last couple of seasons, the final has been a tremendous, a really hard-fought event, and this year will be no different. You're right. We talked about British youth last week. I don't think there's been a more positive status applied in many a year. There seems to be a conveyor belt of young riders, and William Cairns is really interesting, isn't he? He turned 16 early in June. He's destined, I think, to step into the Pool Pirates side just in time to face Glasgow, as the fixtures would have it. And I look forward to seeing William and the rest of the bunch in action at Glasgow in a couple of weeks' time. Good luck to all the finalists. And finally, for this week, Ian Jai from South Hinksey writes in and says, I fear that Oxford management will have no choice but to strengthen up the spires. 6 meetings in, and it just isn't working. And I think that's fair comment, Ian, after the televised meeting at King's Lynn on Monday. The Oxford were well beaten. They were second best in pretty much all departments. Magic Janowski, of course, was the exception to that. And I'm not saying it was lack of effort or anything like that, but the riders just didn't get to grips with the track on Monday night, and King's Lynn made mincemeat of them, if I can describe it that way. And Peter Schrock on TV acknowledged that he had some thinking to do, and no doubt the Spires WhatsApp group has been red hot since Monday night. But let's see what happens next week. Oxford face Birmingham home and away next week. Another team who haven't started the season so briskly. So maybe the Oxford management will give the riders at least another couple of meetings next week to come to their attention and convince them that they're worth persevering with. But some concerning times in the Oxford Spires camp. Thank you, Ian, for taking the time to write in. Okay, moving on now into the final topic for this week. Fan Pulse Lap 4 is how it's all going to end. We're going to propose week on week that we do some club spotlights on the senior speedway clubs in the Premiership and in the Championship, and ultimately we will try and get across and pay some attention to all of them. But we've got to start somewhere, and we're going to start somewhere by talking about Belle Vue Aces. So we had some votes clearly from Belle Vue Aces fans, and this has landed in our top 4 topics as voted for by you guys. So Belle Vue Aces, as a lad growing up in Glasgow, Belle Vue was a far-flung place somewhere in the south. But I grew up knowing and hearing and reading that Belle Vue was the most famous club side in the world. Hyde Road seemed to be I never actually made it to Hyde Road, but it seemed to be quite the place with the fairground next door, etc. Add in some of the history: Peter Craven, Peter Collins, Chris Morton, to name but 3 riders, and of course in its current form, Belle Vue now being in a superb stadium, a stone's throw from the former Hyde Road home, spiritual home, and has the mantle of being the National Speedway Stadium as well. So it looks like it's all going positively for Belle Vue. Guys, I'm going to open with a question that we received from David Nuttall. David, thank you for being a subscriber to our YouTube channel. And David asks, what does the panel think of the National Speedway Stadium at Belle Vue? So as a facility, gents, what's your thoughts on the NSS?
We're talking about the new facilities now, yeah?
Yes, Ronnie.
I mean, as far as the racetrack goes, I think it's absolutely fantastic. You know, the racing and the speed they're going now, it's a passing track. There's plenty of room. I mean, I'd like to have a go. I keep telling them I need to get down there and have a lap myself, actually. But it's a lot different from what I grew up on. So that's the difference. I grew up for Belle Vue, the smaller track. And the facilities there and everything else was a completely different grounds, wasn't it? So I think the facilities on the new one's okay, but I don't think it's good for the crowd-wise, really. The seating situation, the bar side of it all, and the entertainment-wise coming in, it's not very good myself. But the racing on the track makes up the difference, I think, there. But you get the older Belle Vue that I grew up in, there was a good bar, there was good facilities, the track was good, you know, everything worked well. I mean, I think I did 3 years down there and rode with some pretty good riders back down there too. It was Andy Smudgy, Jason Lyons, it was myself. I mean, we had some good riders back there. Even Chris Manchester, a couple of the boys were down there back then in the days. You know, Jimmy Nilsson. So, I mean, of both tracks, I mean, it's hard to say. How do you judge them both? We only rode one, and I've only seen the other. So it's hard to compare them both. But I couldn't ask for any better days around Belle Vue, though. With the crowds and the meetings we've had around there and stuff. I love the times. I think I won the Belle Vue Aces down there and a couple other meetings I won around there, and just enjoyed my time very much with the old Belle Vue, that's for sure. But before I do get out of here, I'm definitely going to get around the new track and do a couple laps, that's for sure, before it's too late, man.
Mark Lemon, if you're watching, Ronnie Correy wants to showcase some laps, cut some laps around.
I already told him, don't worry, he's going to come out.
You told him. So Ronnie, you're obviously talking about Kirkmanshulme Lane. Kirkmanshulme Lane was the previous stadium, and that's another track that was quite a technical track, Ronnie. So you know between Kirkmanshulme Lane and Monmore Green, you like your technical tracks.
Oh yeah, it makes racing better.
Stuart Robson, National Speedway Stadium. I think, did you mention recently that you had some laps around there, Stuart?
I did, yeah. I've done a few meetings up there. So I'm probably one of a handful of riders that have ridden all 3 Belle Vue tracks, to be honest. I did laps around the old Hyde Road as a schoolboy grass track rider back in the day as a probably 6-year-old, maybe 7-year-old, something like that.
Wow, yeah.
So, and I obviously rode Kirkmanshulme Lane a lot of times. I loved that track, to be honest. I loved it because it was rough and it was technical, and a lot of people didn't like that and they couldn't ride it, and you know, I loved it because I fortunately could ride it, and it was one of them. The new track is brilliant. It's great to ride. It's very, very easy to ride, but it's extremely difficult to score points around there because everyone loves the place. It's so easy and there's so much room, and you know, my engines personally weren't quick enough to get around there. You needed a sort of an engine that was set for big tracks, like the Polish tracks and wherever. And I never had an engine that did that because I only used to go there probably a couple of times a year at best. And you just had to try and make do with what you had.
I think when you hear feedback from riders and supporters, the racing week on week at Belle Vue, and you see some highlights on social media throughout the season, and there always seems to be some real top class racing around there, and the track shape appears to lend itself to multiple lines, and some of the riders have build up quite a head of steam going down that back straight. They thunder along there. Stewart McDonald, I know you've been to the the National Speedway Stadium on a few occasions. I've been there for a league match, and I've seen the Speedway of Nations there with temporary stands brought in, and it was quite the setting for such a prestigious event.
It was. I mean, obviously, getting the Grand Prix this season is just testimony to the fact that, you know, the Belle Vue size, the nature of the beast, you know, the sort of the title the club has. I mean, growing up, Peter Collins, you know, Chris Morton, now they were the riders that I used to look at when I was younger. But, you know, I've been there a couple of times now, and I've got to agree a little bit with Ronnie. I think the stadium, I mean, as a setup, you know, I think it's a little bit basic. I don't want to be too critical of it, but I just think that, you know, the back straights, it's a shed, isn't it, that you can stand under. The main stand, and you can't get to certain bits of it, and if you've not got a ticket for this, and, you know, the Belle Vue that I remember was Kirkmanshulme Lane, that, you know, was a great atmosphere. You know, I'm not saying the new one isn't, but I think with that bar, the setup, you know, the stadium the way it was more compact, whereas now the size of it takes a lot to fill both sides of that Belle Vue Stadium. And I just think that Kirkmanshulme Lane was a slightly more atmospheric, if you like. Racing wise, the new track's the best I think I've seen. But also I've been watching a lot of videos on YouTube of Hyde Road, and wow, Hyde Road was a track. You know, I don't know if you got the chance to race it, Ronnie, but
I think I did on that one.
That the banking on that track, I mean, I watched a race where Eric Gunderson, who was like 20 bike lengths behind, getting into the bend and was ahead coming out, and you look at Belle Vue, they've always produced great racetracks. That's one thing, you know, that in Kirkmanshulme Lane, I love that track. It was always slick, it was always bumpy in it, but do you know what? I loved it. It was something about the track I just loved. And the Belle Vue fans, you know, they've been diehards for years, and with the history of the club, you know, let's say that it's a great stadium to go and watch a meeting in because of the track, you know, and the facilities are good. There's not, you know, I'm not mocking them, but I just think for the atmosphere, it's a big stadium, you know, and the third and fourth bend don't have anything if there's no big match, you know, and I just think it's a little bit, it's at least a bit more compact. But the actual track itself, I mean, wow, you know, what Andy Meredith does with that track is just, you know, I don't think I've ever seen a bad race on it. And, you know, it's like Robbo says, I think you could very easily get gobbled up. You know, if you're not on it, you could easily see yourself 6, 7, 8, 9 bike lengths behind. You know, and I think we'll all be agreeing. So I've never seen anybody ride that track quite like Max Freak. I think Max around Belle Vue is just a delight to watch. You know, Dan Bewley is as well, I know that. But Max Freak when there is he's got that place nailed, and the track is just phenomenal to watch. It really is.
Yeah, sorry, I've seen some race footage from the National Development League, the Belle Vue. Is it the Belle Vue Colts? The Colts, yeah. And to your point, Stuart, you know, regardless of the level of speedway or the so-called level, the racing is equally as good at that lower level. It just seems to be a track that the riders have uber confidence on, and they can ride in close contention. There are some riders. Scott Nicholls has admitted many times that he can't, you know, and he was a Belle Vue rider, that he couldn't quite master it. He didn't quite have the speed or the setup that a lot of other riders appear to have around that place, and sometimes you find yourself lacking for pace if you don't have the equipment, Stuart Robson, that you were talking about.
That's right, you've got to have so fast, and your engine's got to be so quick around there. And I was a bit like what Scott is, and I just never had the pace. I loved riding it, don't get me wrong, it was great to ride, and the track was so smooth and very, very well prepared. And yeah, it's great. So if you guys do get the chance to have a go, take it, and you will enjoy it.
Ronnie's chomping at the bit. He's waiting for the phone call.
It does produce some fantastic racing as well. And like you say, there's every meeting there's good races there every meeting, and you see the stuff on social media about them. There's, you know, get little clubs here and there with different races from there. And it's great to watch. And I used to like watching it on TV. It comes across great on there, especially when it's, you know, if it's like a final or something like that. And the tensions there, and you know, there's a good rivalry. obviously the riders want to win and they want to win at all costs, and they are out there to win, you know, so there's no holds barred, and it's brilliant. It's cool, just come across on TV extremely well.
I've wondered a couple of times if the name, the National Speedway Stadium, if that's a little bit of a misnomer, only in so much as, so yes, it hosts the British final year on year. That comes around in just a couple of weeks' time. I think it's Monday the 12th of May or something. So a couple of weeks' time we've got the British final, which is always a superb event. But and yes, you know, I know that Belle Vue do host some training schools, etc. You know, behind closed doors from time to time. But you know, for me, National Speedway Stadium infers that maybe you would run cup finals there. So you know, the championship would have their cup final there, or a playoff final or something there, and that, you know, that hasn't happened yet. And I can understand the reasons, or some reasons for that. But I had expected when the NSS was named that it would potentially be. Oh, someone's talking to me. My phone's talking to me. I sometimes expected that it would be used to stage, you know, national trophy finals, pairs meetings, or 4-team tournament finals, or whatever it might be, and that hasn't happened yet. But that's not a criticism of Belle Vue, and it's certainly not a criticism of the stadium. But I just wonder if the name itself is a little bit of a misnomer, National Speedway Stadium.
I fully agree with you, Derek. You would think that being the National Speedway Stadium, it should host all the national events. It's obviously in the title, isn't it? You know, they've obviously got different clubs that seem to get these prestigious events, and you know, good luck to them. But I agree with you. I think that Belle Vue should hold. You know, I remember obviously before Coventry shut, and you know, Coventry had the British final. I think it was overseas final, I think, as well, Ronnie, and I think the Intercontinental final, you know, back in the day, and you always had some sort of big meeting at Coventry, and then they weren't the National Stadium. But I think with Belle Vue that it should definitely get, you know, it's got the Grand Prix, it's got the British final, and why not have the pairs, the championships, and in the finals of the cups, you know? It's the racing's, the track's obviously there, and it's second to none, and it would be nice to see a lot more big events there.
It's the perfect stage. Listen, thank you, gents. We've reached the end of our talk time for episode 3. Hope you've enjoyed it once again, guys, and thanks very much for all your input and your wise words all night long. Much appreciated. So, 360 Speedsters, that's it for another week. As I've asked already, please keep across all of our social media output. If you have any questions that you'd like to put to these guys or any of next week's panel, please fire them into us. You can comment on YouTube or any of the social media platforms. And remember that WhatsApp, that dedicated WhatsApp number, to try and make life easier for you to get in touch with us. Listen, until next week, enjoy the bank holiday weekend, enjoy your speedway, and look forward to your company again next week. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
See ya.